Dobar dan želim svima i dobrodošli u Medija centar u Čaglavici. Posebnu dobrodošlicu želim delegaciji Evropskog... Posebnu dobrodošlicu želim delegaciji Evropskog parlamenta, koja je već nekoliko dana u poseti Kosovu. Današnju konferenciju organizuje Međunarodna civilna kancelarija u Prištini, a na vaša pitanja danas će odgovarati gospodin Karl von Vogou, lider delegacije, gospodin Just Lagendik, izaslanik sa Kosova, i gospodin Armand Franjulien, šef odeljenja podkomiteta Evropskog parlamenta. Ja se izvinjavam ako nešto nisam dobro izgovorila. I na početku ćemo čuti gospodina Karla von Vogoa, koji ili možda nekog drugog. Jeste, izvolite.
Thank you very much. Perhaps I would like to add a few things to the introduction. I myself am chairman of this subcommittee for security and defense of the European Parliament, and Joost Lagendijk is the rapporteur for the questions of the Kosovo. He is the speaker of the European Parliament for questions concerning the Kosovo, and Armand Franjulien is the head of the secretariat of the Subcommittee for Security and Defense. We are especially interested in all questions which concern security, because in the European Parliament we have developed the opinion that for economic development the most important thing in the beginning is to create security for the citizens and security for business. Because if there is no security, there's also no economic development. And therefore in our visit, which has been a very interesting visit, we have specialized, especially looked at this question of security. And of course, the delegation consists of people from many countries and many parties. There's Mr. Mladenov from Bulgaria, then from the Socialist Group, Mrs. de Kaiser, Mrs. Gomes and Mr. Paletskis. Then from the Liberal Group, it's Mrs. Nates Attebroek, who's from Belgium, and then Frau Beer from Germany, Joost Lagendijk from the Netherlands, and Gisela Kallenbach, again from Germany. So you see it is a delegation for the whole European Parliament, all the political groups, and many of the member countries of the European Union which are represented. Now, of course, what I can tell to you today can be only very preliminary conclusions, because we will go back to the European Parliament with the informations we have collected. We are going to discuss them, and Joost Lagendijk is then going to make a report for the European Parliament. So please take in mind that what I say are only very preliminary conclusions, but I have discussed them with the other members of the delegation. First of all, let me say a few words about EULEX. I think EULEX is very important for the future of Kosovo, and it is important that it is deployed on the whole territory of Kosovo. And I think that is very important for all the communities of Kosovo, because if we want to have the rule of law in the whole of Kosovo and the rule of law for all the communities in Kosovo, I think EULEX is a very important instrument. Then I would like to say, give a few impressions I have gathered and we have gathered. I must say that we have been impressed by the development of the Kosovo police, the Kosovo police force. I think that the quality of the Kosovo police force has been improved in an impressive way. And this, first of all, it's a merit of the Kosovo police force, but it's also a merit of UNMIK. I think in this regard, a good work has been done. Then let me insist again how important it is that EULEX is also going to the north and is deployed in the whole of Kosovo. That's another point I wanted to make. Then, what is new with EULEX and what is new with the European community is the fact that our goal is to hand over responsibilities step by step, but as fast as possible, to the Kosovo government. And I think this is something we have to keep in mind, even if there are some difficulties on this way now, but the final goal must be the handover of responsibility to the government of Kosovo. And I think that it is of the highest importance that all the communities in Kosovo continue to talk with each other. This is difficult from time to time. Sometimes official talks do not take place, but I think even unofficial ways of communication can be of the utmost importance. But because if you want to come to a solution which is really the multi-ethnic Kosovo we are looking for, it is of the highest importance that communication is not breaking down, that there is continuous communication. That's what I wanted to say myself, and I would now hand the floor to Mr. Lagendijk.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. As was said by Mr. Van Wogau, the intention of this trip was to gather new information, of the latest information about the situation here, in order for me to use it in my report that I will draft in the next couple of months, and that will be discussed in the European Parliament at the beginning of next year. So what I would like to do is mention or refer to two issues that will definitely be part of that new report of the European Parliament. One is a point made already by Mr. Van Wogau, so I will be brief on that. But it's important to underline the need to deploy EULEX to the full in all of Kosovo. This is such an important point, because not doing so would in a way predetermine maybe a sort of split in the country where UNMIK would run the north and the Europeans would run the south of the country. And I think from a European Parliament point of view, this is really would be unacceptable. So this will be a point that we will stress strongly in the report. It's also the information that we got here from both Albanians and Serbs, that the deployment of EULEX in the whole of Kosovo is the most important condition for its success. If that doesn't happen, the mission can't be a success. The other point that will surely be made in the report is the fact that it's now up to the Kosovars to run the country. I mean, I've been here since 10 years now, and every year there was another situation, and there was always this confusing mix of international and local responsibility. That story is over. UNMIK is almost out. They will remain, you know, as an umbrella organization, but they can't be considered to rule the country anymore. And also EULEX, I stress again, I guess you know, because it has been said on many occasions, EULEX is not going to replace UNMIK in that sense. EULEX is going to assist on the areas that you know, police, rule of law and customs. They're going to assist the Kosovo government, but there is no excuse anymore, I would say, for the Prime Minister or any other of the ministers to say, no, it's not us who run the country, it's not us who are responsible for the economy, it's the internationals. This is not true anymore now, and it will be even more difficult to sustain that position once EULEX is here. So, for instance, running the country in a democratic and transparent way That is now up, and also up to you as journalists to hold the government responsible. Don't look at the internationals, how they do their things. You should do that as well. But to run Kosovo in a democratic, transparent way, that's up to the Kosovo authorities, and it's up, I think, also for you as a media to hold them responsible for the way things are being done in Kosovo from now on. It's an important change compared to last year or 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. This is a new situation, and it will only be possible, looking at the experiences in my country and other European countries, for a government to do that when they are critically followed by journalists, by newspapers, by radio and television, who make sometimes life difficult on the government, because that's what your task is to do. And I stress this point because I think the only way for Kosovo to get closer to the EU standards on democracy, on transparency, is for the politicians to be closely watched by a critical civil society and a critical media. A second point in running the country is running it in an economically sustainable way. And I think there we, but I guess also you, will be looking how, for instance, the whole privatization program will be done. It will be a key issue that will be watched from the EU, whether it's done in a transparent way again. I mean, I can't stress enough the need for transparency in these sort of difficult processes, because unfortunately we have seen processes of privatization, for instance in Croatia in the past, in other states that are now member states of the EU, that were not done in a transparent way. It's a difficult issue, and I think it's now up to the Kosovo ministers. That is also the message that we gave them when we talked to them. Do it in such a way that your population, your people, your electorate trust you, that you are doing it in a proper way. Thirdly, the whole issue of decentralization. I know you've heard a lot about it, but again, I will underline in the report the need to do it in such a way that both communities or all communities profit from it, because sometimes there is the perception that decentralization is there for the Kosovo Serbs and for the minority communities and not for the Albanians. And the point that we made, and that I'm sure will pop up in the report again, will be to stress the need and the importance of decentralization for all the communities, not only for the minority communities but also for the majority one. So because I'm convinced, and we were happy to hear also from the representatives of all the communities that we met, that people see the advantages of not Pristina running the education or the health service, but the local people that you can hold responsible at the local level to do this in a democratic and transparent way. These will be some of the elements that will pop up in the report that I will draft. It's the second report that this Parliament, this European Parliament, will discuss. The first one was in 2007, last year, in which the Parliament in a way supported the supervised sovereignty of Kosovo along the lines of the Ahtisaari proposals then. I will make the report based on my experiences now. As I said, I've been here every year since 1999, sometimes on several occasions, and we will also, of course, use the information that we get and that we will be getting from the other European institutions, the Commission, EULEX, ICO. Their information is all at our disposal. So I hope, and I'm quite confident, that at the end of the day, in the beginning of next year, the European Parliament will produce a new position on Kosovo, on the future of Kosovo, and on the role of the European institutions there. Thank you very much.
Sada ćemo preći na pitanje. Ja vas molim samo pre nego što počnete da se predstavite, da kažete ime medijske kuće i da kad počnete na jednom jeziku da na tome i završite, ako može.
My name is Artan Arachi. I work for RTK, the public broadcaster. As far as I know, we can say that European Union is even founded by compromise. Not that the countries love truly each other, but they have a compromise. That's why they stay together. How come that it's so impossible to come to a compromise when it comes to this whole independent Kosovo issue? I'm saying this having in mind that there are certain countries which are truly opposing this whole idea of independence. Thanks.
Sometimes if you have a community of 27, it takes some time because before you come at a common conclusion. But I'm quite confident that in the end there will be a common conclusion of the European Union also in this sense. However, this having said, I think the important thing is that the European Union can launch missions like EULEX and contribute to the development of Kosovo, and this is what the European Union is doing, as a matter of fact.
I mean, I think it's important to make the difference between the recognition issue on the one hand. Okay, it's clear member states are not united on that. This is not a surprise. We always knew that this was the case. But on the other hand, even those countries who are not officially recognizing Kosovo for the moment as an independent nation do agree with the EU sending the mission, EULEX mission, to Kosovo. So my perception is, my analysis is that it will be the success of EULEX that will convince also the countries that are not very happy to recognize now that in the end of the day it makes sense for the EU to have a common position. So compromise sometimes takes some time, but it's important to know that the differences of opinion on recognition did not prevent the EU from coming here with, I have to remind you, the biggest mission ever, the most costly and most important also political mission that we see around. So there is differences of opinion on the recognition issue, although you know, Portugal now recognized. I think that will go on. But I'm convinced that the most important issue to convince the skeptics inside the EU will be a good functioning of EULEX in the foreseeable future.
Well, my question had mostly to do with EULEX. I mean, who do you consider a contributor to that mission? Do you consider even Romania and Slovakia? Because so far I think these countries said that they were not going to invest into a mission which helps Kosovo state institutions.
EULEX is financed from the European budget, and all the member states contribute to the European budget.
Having said that, it's true that there is a difference in participation from member states. It is true that for the moment those countries who don't recognize are not very keen on contributing people. They pay in the budget, but they're not keen on contributing personnel. I think that will change as EULEX makes progress. And it's important to notice that EULEX it's a European paid and a European led mission, but for instance the participation of people from United States and Turkey shows that the issue that EULEX is about to do here is supported also by those players. So in the long run we will see an overall European participation, but for the moment you're right, there is this reluctance of those countries who don't recognize also not to contribute, which in a way makes sense to me, to be honest, but that will change I think in the foreseeable future.
Ja sam Marijana Simić, novinar Kim radija. Pitanje za gospodina Karla. Da li ste tokom svoje posjete Kosovu obišli neki izbjeglički kamp u kojem žive raseljeni Srbi na samo kilometar od svojih porušenih kuća? Ili ste možda obišli hrvatsko selo Janjevo na Kosovu koje nestaje ili neko od porušenih crkava? Interesuje me kakve slike nosite sa Kosova? Da li samo one lepe slike ili ste se stvarno uverili u nebezbednost, odnosno u uslove u kojima žive manjinske zajednice na Kosovu? I za vas, gospodine Lagendijk, pitanje kakav je vaš stav povodom misije UNMIK-a? Da li je UNMIK-a, da li su oni ostvarili svoju misiju i kakav je vaš stav povodom nezavisnosti Kosova? Da li vi podržavate tu nezavisnost ili ste i vi statusno neutralni?
Izvolite.
We had different contacts and visits looking at the minority communities, and my impression is that still quite a lot has to be done before they can really feel in total security and before they feel in total security. And I think this is the way ahead. That's where we have to go. I think security is two things. One thing is to be in security. The other thing is also to feel insecurity. And I think that on this way, confidence has to be built and still quite a lot has to be done.
On the UNMIK mission, Yes, I do think that UNMIK's mission has been fulfilled. That's to say that the effectivity, the effectiveness of UNMIK has gone down over the last couple of years. And I think it's about time that it's in a way, it changes position. It will be here with a few people as the umbrella organization that it wants to be for the deployment of ULEX, but their main mission has been fulfilled. So I think I'm in favor of them changing position, slowing down and leaving it up now to ULEX to assist the Kosovo government, because their mission, UNMIK, is of a fundamentally different nature, was of a fundamentally different nature than the new one of EULEX. Yes, I am in favor of supervised sovereignty or supervised independence of Kosovo. That was the position that I put in my report last year, and that got a big majority in the European Parliament.
Samo bih htjela da se korigujem. Malo prije sam rekla pogrešno nešto, ovu konferenciju organizuje Evropski parlament.
Faleminderit. Jam Arbena Tashin nga gazeta Koha Ditore. Falt për çështjen e UNMIK-ut zoti Lagendajk, dhe ka pas shumë komente këtu në Kosovë se misioni Kombeve të Bashkuara, UNMIK-u ka dështuar në Kosovë për shkak se këtu kanë qenë prezent njerëz të shumë vendeve të ndryshme që kanë vepruar me ligjet e vendeve prej nga kanë ardhur, dhe veprimet e tyre nuk kanë rënë në përgjegjësitë ligjeve të Kosovës. Ka pas shumë korrupsion në mesin e administratës së OKB-s, edhe ka shumë komente që ky mision ka dështuar në Kosovë. Në lidhje me këto, çka garanton se misioni i Bashkimit Evropian nuk do të dështojë në mënyrë të njëjtë në Kosovë? Edhe meqense keni ardhur për ta vrejtur situatën aktuale në vend, sa i ka përmbushur, ose sa është duke i përmbushur Kosova standardet për integrim në Bashkimin Evropian, të elaboroj pak. Aktualisht në Kosovë ka opinione, madje edhe të qeveritarëve, se rajonit në tërësi duhet të jepet perspektiva e përbashkët të integrimit në Bashkimin Evropian. Serbisë, edhe pa i plotësuar shumë kushte, i është dhënë drita jeshile për integrim. Ndërkaq, nëse Serbia integrohet para Kosovës, ajo do të jetë pengesë e madhe për integrimin e Kosovës në të ardhmen. A duhet rajoni në tërësi integrohet? Faleminderit.
On your first question, you are right. I think one of the main deficiencies of UNMIK, and that became clearer the longer they stayed here, was the fact that because it's a UN organization, they have these very complicated rules which don't include, unfortunately, accountability. There are indeed, unfortunately, cases of problems created by people of UNMIK that could not be put before a court, or could not be, they could not answer, they were not able to answer for the Kosovo public opinion. And I think it's one of the most important lessons that the European mission has learned. The European mission, EULEX people, will be held accountable by the European Parliament. That's why it's one of the reasons why we are here, not only financially, but also their performance. And it's quite clear, I think, for all the Europeans with some experience in Kosovo, that it doesn't make sense for any international presence to be here and not be able to be held accountable by the Kosovo government, by the Kosovo Parliament, by Kosovo citizens, even if the ombudsman function would really be developed. So I think it will be an important difference between that mission and UNMIK mission, the way it is accountable both here and in Brussels, where we make the key decisions. So that will be an important difference with the UNMIK mission, and I'm happy it is that big a difference. On the integration of the whole region, I think you will hardly find any politician in the European Parliament who would not agree with the final end goal of full integration of all states, all countries in the Balkans into the European Union. It's a more or less commonly shared vision of the European Parliament on the future of the Balkans. Having said that, I think that the lessons of earlier enlargement to the European Union, and I'm thinking specifically about Cyprus, is that the European Union should not import issues or international disputes and let those countries in while the problems are not yet solved. I think that the Cyprus issue should have been solved before Cyprus became a member, and I'm convinced that Serbia and Kosovo will only become and will be able to become member of the EU when their dispute has been settled. That goes for Serbia, that goes for Kosovo. For the moment I can't tell who will be first, but that would be my position, I would not take in any of the two countries unless their internal or their bilateral relations have been dealt with in a proper way, because otherwise the EU would be importing inside the EU a problem that I think should be solved first. So that is my answer, yes, integration, but only integration after the problem between Serbia and Kosovo has been dealt with.
Gospodine Lagendijk, vi govorite o Kosovu kao da je status Kosova već rešen. Bar koristite tu terminologiju. Ja bih vas zamolio da nam precizno kažete da li je status Kosova rešen ili nije po vašoj oceni. Dalje, kažete, morate priznati da ste prvi čovjek koji je izgovorio misija Ujedinjenih nacija je završila svoj posao na Kosovu. Iz čega vidite ili u čemu vidite pravnu podlogu da misija Ujedinjenih nacija napusti Kosovo, a EULEX bude raspoređen na celoj teritoriji Kosova? Šta je pravni akt za tako nešto? I onako iz vašeg ugla, pošto već vidite da je svršena stvar na Kosovu, kako mislite da ubedite Beograd? Da li postoje neki dodatni pritisci koji će primorati Beograd da promeni stav i da kaže u redu, misija EULEX-a neka se rasporedi na celoj teritoriji Kosova, mi prihvatamo EULEX, misija Ujedinjenih nacija odlazi? Ako celo vreme čujemo te signale da treba nastaviti pregovore, nastaviti dijalog, između ostalog i vi ste sada kazali da između Beograda i Prištine treba tražiti neko rešenje tih problema koji stoje.
I know what you're hinting at, but yes, for the majority of the member states of the EU, the issue of the status has been resolved because they recognize an independent Kosovo. Punto. The minority of member states does not, and I'm sure you know the count of the member states of the United Nations. There's only 47 up till now. So for a lot of countries it's not resolved. But EULEX would not go in, and the European Parliament would not support the deployment of EULEX if we thought, oh, it could go either way. We could go back to our position and then not recognize Kosovo. No, Kosovo has been recognized by the majority of the EU member states, and that won't change. None of those countries is going to have second thoughts and make a new evaluation. So in that sense, yes, it has been resolved. I know it will be brought before the International Court, and there will be many debates, there will be many discussions, but EULEX, the EU, will not wait until the International Court has spoken. That will take years, and I think it makes sense for Kosovo, for all citizens of Kosovo, for the EU to be here from now on, and not wait until the court has spoken. So that is, in fact, creating facts on the ground. It is fait accompli, you're fully right in that, but that's the way the situation is. Now on UNMIC, you know, I guess better than we do maybe, the legal and political complications about UNMIC. You know as well, I guess, that the Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, wrote a letter, I think it was in March, saying that the situation on the ground has changed. UNMIC is winding down and the EU wants to come in, and because of that he is in favor of the famous reconfiguration of UNMIC. That is taking place now, the reconfiguration, and I guess everybody can more or less predict the outcome of that. That will be a presence of UNMIC, yes, as an umbrella organization for, among others, EULEX and ICO to continue working here. but also for the Kosovo government to take up responsibilities. That is the new situation on the ground. You know better than I do that the Security Council is not in full harmony about that. Russia doesn't like it. Other countries have their problem as well. But UNMIK is reconfigured on the basis of the letter of Mr. Ban Ki-moon. EULEX will come in on the basis of that letter as well, acting under the umbrella of UNMIK, but the role of UNMIK from now on will be definitely different than the role they played since 1999. They are not running the country anymore. That's up to the Kosovo authorities, assisted by the Europeans. That is the situation that has changed, and it has been recognized by Ban Ki-moon. Being under political pressure in the Security Council, that will continue, I'm sure. So we will hear a lot of confusing sounds maybe coming out of New York, but the fact is that UNMIK is reconfigured, and EULEX will function under the umbrella as a European organization assisting the Kosovo authorities running an independent country.
Niste mi odgovorili na pitanje kako će Evropski parlament privoleti Beograd da promeni stav po pitanju EULEX-a.
I think based on the European traditions of dialogue and compromise, the EU will go quite a long way in trying to convince Belgrade that it would be beneficial to both, to all the inhabitants, let me put it like that, to all the citizens of Kosovo, including the ones living in the north, if EULEX is deployed in the whole of the country. How long will the dialogue take? How will the compromise look like? I can't predict that. That is up to the EU to do. But I am convinced that there is a majority in the parliament and there is a majority among the EU member states who will not accept a Belgrade veto on the deployment of EULEX. It's not acceptable that EULEX will be restricted only to the south of Ibar and that UNMIK will continue to run the north of Kosovo. That is a situation that in the long run is not acceptable. So the EU will do all its diplomatic, political, financial, I don't know how, measures and means and experience to convince Belgrade that it's in the interest of the inhabitants of Kosovo, and I would say in the interest of the inhabitants of all Serbia, that EULEX is deployed in the whole of Kosovo. Will Belgrade accept in the end? When will they accept? Under which conditions? I don't know. I'm not going to predict that because I don't know. Nobody knows. But I can assure you that there will be strong pressure, including from the European Parliament, on the EU to keep on making the case for EULEX deployment in the whole of Kosovo, and as I said, not accept a sort of partition of Kosovo, EULEX in the south and UNMIK in the north. That is not acceptable, and that message will be brought very strongly to Belgrade as well.
Jasmina Stojković, televizija Most. Gospodine Lagendok, da li možete sada slobodno reći da misija EULEX-a, odluka o misiji EULEX-a je doneta da bi se konačno finalizovalo nezavisnost Kosova. I to je jedini cilj misije. I u tom slučaju, ukoliko to uradite bez očigledne saglasnosti najvećeg međunarodno-pravnog tela Saveta bezbednosti, jer to i jeste cilj, ako sam dobro shvatila, da li je Evropa spremna da prihvati odgovornost u budućnosti što je na svoju ruku donela jednu takvu odluku da stvara nove države u regionu? Jer će to očigledno biti jedino i samo zasluga Evrope.
No, it's not the task of EULEX to bring independence to Kosovo. Independence has been recognized, as you know, by, what is it now, 21 or 22? I'm lost counting, but at least the majority of the member states of the EU. They recognize the right of Kosovo to be independent. In order to help Kosovo get to the European Union and fully develop its independence, the European Union has decided to send a mission. That's EULEX. So please keep these two things separate. The recognition of independence has been done, and as I said, it won't be reversed. These countries are not going to have second thoughts on that. As Mr. Van Woga said, we expect that also the ones who don't recognize independence now will do so in the foreseeable future. It's a European interest for Kosovo to develop into a democratic country with a sustainable economy, and at the end of the day join the European Union. That is what the majority of the Europeans, Parliament, Member States agree upon. Now we know that there is no approval yet from the Security Council because Russia and some other states don't like what is happening and they disagree. That is the situation as it is. Despite that, the EU made progress and said we will recognize and we will send in the mission, because it's my conviction that we can't wait until we have a full agreement in the Security Council and have the Russians on board as well. The Russians have their own particular play in the world. You see what they did in South Ossetia and Abkhazia. They did exactly the same as they said that the Europeans were doing in Kosovo. So they have they have their own policy. The EU has its own policy as well. So that is the situation, and that is not going to change. Don't expect the EU to come back to its decision on recognition or on sending EULEX. I hope at the end of the day that Kosovo will be allowed to be a member state of the UN. That will depend on other countries outside of the EU as well. But it's quite a firm commitment to independence, and in helping Kosovo develop a full-blown economy and democracy, the Europeans are here to help, to assist, to monitor, to mentor. That is what EULEX is about. But the decision about independence, whether you like it or not, or Belgrade likes it or not, or Moscow likes it or not, that decision has already been taken by the majority of the EU member states and by a big majority in the Parliament as well.
Again, Artoni from RTK. Is there any change on the European Union stance toward Kosovo, and especially EULEX? Because as far as I know, the official version and the official plan was Kosovo Assembly declares independence, then EULEX comes in the country. That means that EULEX was supposed to be coming in an independent Kosovo. And what you say is slightly different, isn't it?
I mean, Kosovo is considered independent by the majority of the member states of the EU, because they have recognized independence. So that condition has been fulfilled. EULEX is now deploying in a country that is considered by the majority of the EU member states as being an independent country. There are diplomats here, there are embassies here, there will be Kosovo ambassadors in those countries. So that is the situation. It's not so, as you know very well, that this independence has been recognized by everybody in the world, or by even the majority of the member states of the General Assembly. That's the situation. But as I said, I would find it irresponsible of the EU to wait until the majority of, for instance, the member states of the General Assembly of the UN recognize independence. EU made the decision to go in now, and that decision has broad support in the Parliament and among the member states. That is the situation.
Moram priznati da sam zaista zatečen kontradiktornim ocenama. Da li je po vama Južna Osetija i Abhazija su nezavisne države? Time što su ih priznali Rusija i Nikaragva? Nisu. Ja onda vas pitam, kako mislite da promenite stav Beograda ako i Tadić i kompletno rukovodstvo Srbije kaže da po cenu toga da neće ući u Evropsku uniju, neće priznati nezavisno Kosovo? Da li zazirete od mogućeg poziva Beograda da kaže: gospodo Srbi, vi sa Kosova, sa severa Kosova, nećete prihvatiti EULEX, to imate podršku zvanične vlasti iz Beograda? Kako ćete onda reagovati? Da li ćete silom nametnuti EULEX na severu Kosova i u srpskim sredinama? Da li postoji opcija, da li razmišljate o nasilnom raspoređivanju EULEX-a na severu Kosova? Jer budite uvereni da drugačije, sve su prilike teško sada za sada, da će to biti sprovedeno.
I'm not in charge, the European Parliament is not in charge of taking decisions about using violence. So no, it's not a thing that we have discussed, it's not a thing that we will discuss. But no, wait, I'll come to that. I'll come to Abkhazia, no problem. So how ULEX is going to be deployed and how Belgrade, but I think also the Kosovo Serbs will be convinced that it's a good thing, that remains open. I mean, I don't know. I know of the strong commitment to deploy. How to do it, when to do it, with the consensus and the compromise with whom exactly, I don't know. And I think, to be honest, for the moment, nobody really knows. But there should not be a misunderstanding that we will stop short of the Ibar River. That is not going to happen. It will be deployed. How and when is open for debate and discussion. And you know, I mean, the tradition of the EU is not to force with violence things upon countries or people, but to do it through compromise and diplomacy. I'm confident that the EU will try that road again. Especially, of course, let's not forget that Serbia wants to join the European Union. The majority of the Serbs want their country to join the European Union. If one of the preconditions is to deal or to settle the Kosovo question before, and I can guarantee you more or less that that will be a condition, it will be in the end upon Serbia's politicians and Serbia's electorate to make the choice. And if I could give one advice, I would advise the Serbian government to choose for the road to Europe and the membership of the EU instead of sticking to this position that they have now. But it's in the end of the day, after all the exchange of opinions, it's up to the Serb government, the Serb citizens to decide what they want. On Abkhazia and South Ossetia, no, they are not considered independent by the EU, by none of the EU member states, because the EU member states have said that the reason to recognize Kosovo was without any precedent. It's a unique situation, a situation that is not applicable to South Ossetia or Abkhazia. So that is in line with what we said about Kosovo. We're not going to repeat the same recognition again, because the situation there is fundamentally, from a legal, political point of view, different than it is in Kosovo.
Još jedno.
Edhe një pyetje të shkurt, zoti Lagendajk. Gjatë qëndrimit në New York, gjatë mbledhjes së Asamblesë Përgjithshme të OKB-s, presidenti i Serbisë Boris Tadić e përmendi për herë të parë zyrtarisht publikisht opsionin e ndarjes së Kosovës si mundësi. Si e komentoni ju këtë qëndrim të Tadićit dhe këtë përpjekje? A është një lloj pranimi i dështimit të mbajtjes Kosovës në pushtimin e Serbisë? Faleminderit.
I think many of us were surprised by the fact that Mr. Tadić mentioned partition as an ultimate solution. I mean, he had a lot of if and buts before, but I think he answered to a question of a journalist saying that whether he could think of partition. Then, according to the information I got, he said that he could theoretically think about it. Personally, I think it's not on the agenda for a very, very long time. Whoever we spoke to during our mission, be it Kosovo Albanians, also Kosovo Serbs, even Kosovo Serbs who are in the Serb government and responsible for relations between Kosovo and Serbia, they spoke out strongly against partition. And I think I personally can tell you that partition, or even considering partition, is not part of our debate in the European Parliament. It's not part of the debate about among the member states. It's an option that has been discussed, of course, I mean, already many, many years. But for politicians to refer to it, I think you won't find Kosovo politicians willing to do that. You won't find Kosovo Serb politicians willing to do so, and you will never for the moment find any European politicians willing to consider the option. So, to be honest, I was surprised that Mr. Tadić raised the issue, because it's not on the agenda of the Albanians, the Serbs and the Europeans.
I would like to confirm this. Partition is certainly not a solution, and all the discussions we have had, also in the south, have shown that partition would also be to the disadvantage of the Serbs who live in the south. So partition is not debated in the European Parliament, and it's certainly not a solution.
Bez dalje diskusije, samo vas molim da mi kažete tokom boravka na Kosmetu, sa kojim Srbima ste se susreli i razgovarali? Konkretno, imenom, prezimenom, jer to ne znamo.
I can all the names because I've talked with so many Serbs and so many Albanians. But what I very clearly heard was the fact that partition was not considered also by people from the south as a possible solution.
The program is not secret, so we met Oliver Ivanovic and Rada Trajkovic over the last couple of days. Apart from that, we spoke to many other people in the enclaves and in the north, but they were the two functionaries or the two people that we met as well, and they confirmed what we said.
Hvala lepo. I ja bih se zahvalila delegaciji Evropskog parlamenta zato što je odabrala Medija centar da se obrati novinarima. Hvala vam još jednom. Želim vam srećan put. Vama svima